Good afternoon. We are calling to order the Land Clearance Redevelopment Authority for the City of St. Louis for its regularly scheduled meeting held on December 17, 2024 via Zoom. Linda, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Koenig,
Present.
Commissioner Spencer,
Present.
Commissioner Jones is absent at the moment, and Chair McBride.
Present.
You have a quorum with 3 present and 1 absent.
Thank you. We'll take up approval for the minutes for the meeting held on November 19, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Spencer.
I second.
Been properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Koenig,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Thank
There
you.
he is. Whoop. Got excited.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, Kennard. This time we'll take up resolution 24 LCRA 10896 relating to designating Lafayette Preservation LLC as redeveloper of certain property in the Gate District. See, Zach, you're going to walk us through that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. This is designating Lafayette Preservation LLC as developer for portions of the Gate District. It's mostly roughly bounded by Park on the south, Rucker on the north, parts of Jefferson on the east, and then Ohio on the west. It also takes in a couple buildings along Caroline. Overall, there'll be 162 units will be renovated. 100 of them will be one-bedroom senior units. 62 units will be family units geared towards families. 4 bedrooms will be 11 of those. 8 units will be 2 bedrooms. 43 will be 3 bedrooms. The larger units, multi-bedroom units, are in high demand across the city, so this is a major win for this type of development for the city. Like all other LIHTC deals, we are supporting 10 years at 90, followed by 5 years at 50. Since this is an existing Chapter 99, we do not have to find blight, but we are just designating developers. So this is a one-step process with this board. It doesn't have to go to the Board of Aldermen because it's an existing Chapter 99 area. I got Eric McMahon here to speak on behalf of the developer. Also, we have Andrew Knopp to speak from the staff to speak on the community scorecard, and Jake Neerup to speak on the financial scorecard. So I'll leave up to the board to decide which order you need to go in.
Thank you, Zach. Let's see, Mr. McMahon, would you be able to add any more context to the presentation that Zach gave us?
Sure. So as Zach mentioned, we're basically combining an existing senior development and an existing family development into one kind of LIHTC redevelopment for efficiency's sake. These properties have Section 8 HAP contract on all 162 units. So the tenants will have rental assistance as part of the renovation. Just kind of want to note the properties have suffered from kind of not necessarily neglect, but just a lack of resources. As you can see just from this one picture, they're in desperate need of renovation. So overall, the renovation work is pretty extensive. It includes new windows, all new siding, exterior doors, and then interior energy efficient upgrades on the mechanical systems, new cabinets, new quartz countertops for both sides. For the family, right now they do not have kind of any kind of community space, so we are building a new community building that the management office will be in, which will also have community space for tenants, computer lab, new playgrounds. We're building a splash pad, working to integrate services into the property. We've also partnered with Gateway Housing First, a local nonprofit service provider, to provide basically supportive housing to folks within the development as well. Folks like Gateway Housing First are looking for units that offer rental assistance, just because their customers have, very little income. So partnering with Gateway Housing First to provide much needed supportive housing for St. Louis. We're excited. The location, proximity to public transportation and whatnot makes this a real exciting project. And so we're excited to get going on it.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners for Mr. McMahon at this time? We see Commissioner Koenig's hand up.
Yeah, I just had one question, Mr. McMahon. I'm just looking at the properties, and since quite a few of them are going to be senior affordable, is there planned work for improved accessibility in these units? I'm just seeing all the steps.
Yeah. So the buildings you're looking at there are townhomes for families.
Okay.
Senior building is basically at the corner of Park and Ohio. Those are generally, for the most part, like a double loaded corridor building. So you have a hallway. There's 2 elevators on those buildings. So they are accessible kind of as it stands now. We're going to improve the accessibility for those senior buildings. These were renovated probably 17 years ago. So the ADA could still use some further improvements. So those are planned. The family townhomes are unfortunately townhomes, and there's not much you can do on the accessibility on that side, just because they are townhomes. But there will be an accessible pathway for the community center and leasing office on that site. I will note the senior building will have its own community space for the seniors as well, so they don't have to travel to the family site. That'll all be integrated within that campus.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, and I recognize Commissioner Spencer's hand.
Hi, Mr. McMahon. Just a couple of questions. The first one is, have you already been approved for the LIHTC?
Yes.
Ready to go?
Yeah, this project is ready to be teed up. We were approved last December for federal and state 4% low-income housing tax credits. So this project has been completely it's boiled and ready to go, essentially. It's been bid out. EM Harris is the general contractor. We have debt and equity lined up, and we're just working with MHTC on their firm commitment and kind of green light to close. So in theory, this is a probably February close, barring everything goes well.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Sometimes people want to get in front of it and do it before they get the award, but it's always good to hear that it's ready to move forward.
Yep, we'd like to come ready to go.
So also with the there's relocation assistance. Are you planning on doing it the renovations multiple buildings at a time, the whole project at one time? What's the game plan on the renovations?
So currently the property is about 20% vacant. Our plan is to acquire it with that vacancy, and then as we go, not release units as there's just kind of natural attrition. And then we will work on basically blocks of units, townhome buildings, renovate a pod, move folks from their current unit to the renovated unit, and basically kind of daisy chain down a path like that. And then essentially when we're done, near the end of the project, we'll only have to lease 20% of the units, but we won't do any work in any occupied units, just because the work needed is so extensive. You won't see us, move folks out for the day and then back in like some renovation. This is pretty extensive work.
Yeah, I appreciate the context on the renovation that you provided earlier too.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my main question. That's what typically people want to know when these projects get awarded and they start moving forward, and to have 20% vacant and to be able to look at keeping people in their existing neighborhood and their into this particular area, I think it's a real benefit to the project. So good.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some seniors that have lived there for 10, 15 years. That's pretty amazing. You know, they get in an area even where I think maybe there's been some neglect on the management side. It shows you how valuable the location and the rental assistance is to these folks, that they're willing to maybe toughen out under some, you know, tougher circumstances.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. And if you could just stay on the line, Ms. McMahon, we may have some further questions, but this time we'll take up the report of this community benefits scorecard by Andrew Knott. Andrew.
Hello, everybody. So, as with a lot of the affordable housing projects, we do get a pretty high score here, and actually a lot of the benefits that I'll talk about have already kind of been discussed. So, first and foremost, obviously this is deeply affordable, and not just affordable to anyone, but that we're targeting family style units and senior affordable units. So the 40 points is even more valuable in some cases here. It is located in Economic Justice Index Area 2. It's adjacent to stronger areas, which I think is part of the attractiveness of the location for the people that will be living there. 20 points for this. There is good bus access, but this is also in close proximity to a proposed north-south Metrolink station. So if that line were to occur in the future, it would be great transit access in addition to what's already existing for the residents. The size of the investment, nearly $40 million. 5 points there. It is a significant renovation, as has been discussed. Again, good location along the Jefferson Commercial Corridor and the access to things it provides there commercially and otherwise. So adding some residential density around our corridors, 5 points for this. And the tax abatement here will be supporting state and federal LIHTC credits that, again, has been discussed, are already awarded. So we're kind of further supporting that affordable housing tax credit. Total of 81 points. It's built in 1977, these buildings, so just outside of our threshold for historic preservation, but clearly the buildings are in need of refresh so that these people have good places to live. So if you have questions about this, happy to answer.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions on the community benefit scorecard from the commissioners? And Andrew, just to give us a little bit of backdrop, since it's the end of the year, I always like to refresh what the processes are. The purpose of this, as I recall, is after we consulted with our outside consultants, Baker Tilly, we kind of had a first in the nation community benefit scorecard for tax incentives. And this sets the framework by which the potential incentive would be evaluated by aggregating the scores and placing it in the certain tier. Is that roughly correct?
Yeah, so I mean, some other places will do things like a financial analysis and kind of touching upon the but for to show that incentives are necessary for a development to happen. But what we do in addition here is kind of lay out what are the benefits to the community first and make sure they're getting to certain thresholds. And then from there, use the financial analysis that Jake will go over to narrow in on what level of incentive is necessary to kind of meet the but for and rate of return analysis requirements. So we are kind of doing something additional, and I think it also helps to communicate more publicly the benefits of some of the projects that come before us to the broader public.
Very good. Thank you much. If there's nothing else on the community benefits scorecard, then we will take up the financial impact report by Jake Nera.
Sure, good afternoon. Happy to walk you guys through this one. As is kind of typical with these LIHTC deals, and particularly the 4% LIHTC rehab deals, kind of the top line numbers here are pretty small. So the property has base taxes around $62,000. We'd expect that to increase to about $70,000 over the average of the 15-year abatement period, and a little over $90,000 after the abatement ends. I think with these, it's good to remember exactly kind of what we're abating in this scenario, which is just the incremental increase in taxes on the property due to the proposed renovation. So typically our model would kind of go through an income approach here and cap an NOI and do all these other things to get to that number. But for these, essentially what we do is we just look at the base taxes and then adjust them up about 25 or 30%, assuming that post renovation, the assessor is going to recognize a lot of that value, and just kind of go from there. And it's got, 15 years of inflation built in to get to that $90,000 number at the end as well. So we have a fiscal benefit to the city. Again, numbers pretty small, about $16,000 over 10 years, increasing to $107,000 over 20 years. Impact to the school districts of about $25,000 over 10 years, increasing to $265,000 over 20. So that's when you see that abatement wear off, and then all of those incremental real property tax revenues are flowing back to the districts again. And revenue impacts for the other 9 taxing districts, Metropolitan Sewer, Zoo Museum, Community College, Senior Services, et cetera, of about $9,000 over 10 years, increasing to $96,000 for 20 years. The uses of funds include about a little over $15 million in hard costs. So from a MWBE perspective, we expect impacts to minority-owned businesses to be about $3.7 million, and impacts to women-owned businesses to be about $1.7 million. We have a developer rate of return analysis, kind of a poor fit for these types of projects, but we have an incentivized return of 4.7, which is obviously well below the median for multifamily of just 7.8. A couple things going on there. The rate of return analysis is essentially looking at a project unlevered internal rate of return at year 10. This project would obviously not be held for 10 years and then sold due to the tax credit and some other things. So it's kind of a square peg in a round hole. But that said, the return is low, and we can certainly point to kind of the abundant community benefits that Andrew just pointed out as well when we're looking at kind of the impacts of this. We're not anticipating any new job creation net total. If there would be, maybe it's pretty nominal. We didn't account for it. But we have a net present value in the incentive of a little under 1% of project costs. So it's about $310,000. So in this case, it's kind of a financial decision as well as a policy decision. But this is a way to sort of lower operating expenses for, an affordable housing management company over the term of that incentive.
Very good. And Jake, when you said job creation, that anticipates a job creation by the owner of the property. That doesn't include the actual contractors performing the work on the job, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that does not include construction. That's just sort of long-term jobs at the site.
Absolutely. And with regard to the MWBE impacts, we've walked through that they would be contractually required to use $3.7 million worth of minority-owned contractors and $1.7 million of women-owned contractors. Are there any other manners in which private construction absent incentives could require those MWBE requirements?
Not to my knowledge. This is our way to kind of pull the lever on those as well.
Very good. Well, that seems like a good use of both the benefits that this project is bringing and also the benefits to the community through this program. Any questions from the commissioners for Jake on the financial impact report? Commissioner Spencer,
Thanks, Chairman.
your hand go back up?
Yeah, I forgot to lower it before. I appreciate all the.
Are you asking for a standing recognition?
I've never done it before, but if you want to give it to me, I'll take it.
Maybe.
Jake, is there just maybe a little bit more on the developer's rate of return? And yeah, I get it's 15 years he's going to hold it that long, or they're going to hold it that long, and we're looking at a 10-year. But would you say that the acquisition price and the cost of the redevelopment is probably also what's pushing that developer fee down a little bit lower than what you might see in a project this size? I love the scale, and it seems like, to get the scale, they probably had to pay what they needed to pay in order to do something this big, but wanted to see if that was your opinion too.
For sure. Are you all able to hear me? My screen just went blank, but I can
We
still
can hear
hear everyone. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going blind. Sure. Yeah, I think kind of the other thing factoring into this is the rate of return is kind of a market rate analysis, and with affordable housing deals in particular, you have restricted rents for one, but also kind of higher than average operating expenses as well. So it's cutting in both ways to kind of lower what those potential returns would be.
Really good point. Thank you.
Anything else for Jake on the financial impact report? Thank you. Anything else from Zach on this resolution? Thank you. Looks like a good project that's going to impact a lot of good constituencies in a positive manner. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 24 LCRA 10896. Is there a
I
motion
so
to
move.
approve?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Koenig,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
All right, thank you. We are going to skip down on our agenda. Well, actually, let's see, Mr. Morrow on resolution 10897. Do we need to take any action to table that, or do we just move on in our agenda?
Olivia's our attorney on this board now.
Oh, Olivia,
Yes,
same question.
yes. If you would like to table or postpone that, I would suggest just making a motion to postpone until staff brings the resolution back to the board.
Very good. Then this time I'd entertain a motion to postpone taking up resolution 24 LCRA 10897.
So moved, Spencer.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Koenig. Commissioner Koenig, you're muted.
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Thank you.
Chairman McBride, can we skip
sir.
down to 10901, please? We have guests for that one.
Absolutely. We always want to make the best use of everyone's time. So if you would give me one moment. At this time, we'll take out of order resolution 24 LCRA 10901 relating to supplemental agreement for engineering services for the 20th Street Multimodal Improvements Project. Rob, are you going to take us through that?
I'm going to do my best.
That's all we can ask.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Happy to be here presenting 24 LCRA 10901. This resolution authorizes a supplemental agreement number 3 for a contract with Crawford, Murphy and Tilley, commonly known as CMT Engineering. This is for design and engineering services related to the 20th Street multimodal improvement projects, increasing the amount of the contract to an amount not to exceed $1.528 million and 2 cents. This 20th Street multimodal project was one of 9 that was identified in the city and state's efforts to retain the NGA jobs in the city of St. Louis, relocating to a North St. Louis site. All totaled, there's approximately $145 million in infrastructure projects. With inflation, that has gone up significantly. We have completed 4. This project is the 5th, getting ready to start very soon. Contracts are being circulated for signatures now. 2 other projects are in planning, and 2 other projects are delayed for many reasons, but funding may run out before we're able to fully complete those 2 projects. But this one is a great project. It runs from Market Street on the south to St. Louis Avenue on the north. It includes a cycle track. It is funded by multiple sources, including a $5 million grant from the East-West Gateways Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, a contribution of $500,000 from Great Rivers Greenway. As mentioned, it includes a cycle track. It also includes an inflation adjustment from East-West Gateway of $1 million due to significant rising costs on public projects throughout the region. East-West Gateway was able to provide some additional funding, which comes in very handy on this project. And then the balance will be paid for by NGA bond proceeds that LCRA issued a number of years ago. CMT is the engineer in this project. Supplemental work covered by this additional agreement includes a significant additional amount of work required due to the fact that when underground investigations were undertaken, they discovered that a water main was not located as it was shown on previous drawings. So we had to start over, and the engineers had to reconfigure approximately a fourth of the project to accommodate the cycle track and to also keep the total project cost down. It also includes some additional work with utility coordination going forward. This was something that we undertook on 20th or on Jefferson Avenue, which is of great importance because coordinating the timing of all of the underground work when there's a lot of unknowns and there are conditions that are encountered in the field that aren't necessarily existing in drawings. It's very helpful to have a utility coordinator to make sure that services aren't disrupted and anything that's encountered is dealt with very timely. And then just due to the delay of the project, this one is approximately 2 years behind for a number of reasons, COVID among them, but there's been additional work required by the engineers. So seeking an additional $165.45, adding a small 10% contingency just in case we encounter anything minor that we don't have to come back and seek additional authorization. And as I mentioned, the construction contract is being circulated now, and we expect work to begin very early in 2025. The sooner the better. And I do have on this call is Jay Rakers, who's the project manager for CMT. I just want to point out that his team has done an absolutely amazing job, not only on the Jefferson Avenue project, but on this 20th Street multimodal project. In fact, this project won a 2023 American Planning Association Award for Best Planning Practices for the St. Louis region of that organization, of the American Planning Association. So if you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but Jay Rakers is also available to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Rob. At this time, let's pivot to Mr. Rakers, and Jay, if you have any additional context to add to the presentation that Rob gave us, we would appreciate that insight.
Sure thing. Inside that $76,000, and Rob, I appreciate the kind words about CMT. This project and Jefferson have both been outstanding projects for CMT, and we're proud of both of them. So, but as far as this supplement goes, $40,000 of it is roughly being requested by the inspection team to continue the utility coordination efforts. It's a heavy utility corridor, and our team is there to assist the inspection team for BPS throughout the duration of the project to help minimize construction conflicts that might arise with all the underground utilities and stay ahead of the game there. And then the other part of that is just discovering a large 36-inch water main underneath the existing roadway, where we had to pivot the design, based on water prints not being accurate. We had a gut feeling about it, and we did some SUE investigation work with subsurface and utility investigations, and we subsequently discovered the correct location for the 36-inch water main. And allowed for that 36-inch water main to stay in place, which if it has to get relocated, 36-inch water main is $800 a linear foot times potentially over 1,000 feet. That could have been close to $1 million change order if we didn't do this. So we feel the $36,000 is well worth the effort for that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rickers, and we appreciate, finding everything and correcting the locations of water mains, so we all know where you can find things. Any questions for Mr. Rickers from the commissioners? Commissioner Spencer?
Okay, I'm still working on this raise hand button. Thank you, Chairman. One of the questions, having some experience with all these utilities and not exactly knowing where everything's located, is there a massive increase in any of the other utilities that had to be relocated for this particular project that went along with the findings that your firm came up with?
No, the cost savings was basically what we did was just past Madison Street, maybe 3/4 of the way through going north. We shifted the cross section of the cycle track. The cycle track's going to be
Oh, gotcha.
on one side of the street up until about Madison Street, and then we're going to cross diagonally across and continue the cycle track on the other side of the street in order to avoid that water main. That water main was going to be impacted if we kept it where it was because we have lighting bases, signal bases, drainage structures that were all being proposed and would have been disruptive to the existing water main. So by shifting everything just to the other side, we avoided all utility conflicts and there was no other new ones discovered that I'm aware of.
And all the right of way, I guess maybe that's a question to Rob. There wasn't any additional right of way, or if there was, that was able to be taken care of.
Yeah.
It was not without a little bit of pain, though.
I know I get into the weeds a little bit, but I know what you guys are dealing with, and I know it's very complicated, so I appreciate everybody's work. But I think this is probably a good time for a comment about what this board can provide in terms of providing some assistance, incentives in some cases. When you build in a legacy city like this, developers, whether it's governmental or private developers or not-for-profits, you're going to find problems, and those problems cost money. And I think everybody needs to really recognize that it is not easy to come behind 150, 200 years of development and do something new. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Are we nearing the end of the project so that we don't believe there'll be a need for a supplemental agreement, a fifth supplemental to agreement, or are there still items that could crop up in the interim?
So this should be it. The utility coordination is actually an estimate based on, what is expected, assistance needed to provide to the Board of Public Service. This project has actually now been turned over to the city's Board of Public Service, who will manage the construction oversight. And Jay's team will be there to assist as they encounter utility issues and try and, as you mentioned, stay out ahead of those so they don't delay the project. Service isn't disrupted. Contractor isn't disrupted in their schedule, and any field changes that might be necessitated by what's discovered, in that oversight of the utilities. Again, the project, we're very close. As soon as we can get the comptroller's signature on the contract, a notice to proceed will be issued. That is likely going to be another month, but very early 2025. We hope to have a notice to proceed issued for this significant project. And like I mentioned, there are 4 remaining projects: Cass Avenue, from Tucker to 1 block west of Jefferson, which is Elliott. That one is in design. We have tacked onto that one Cass Avenue Section 2, which takes it from Elliott just west of Jefferson all the way to North Grand. So that's really 2 projects that are in design that we hope to be out for bid, maybe late next year or early the following year. That project's a little bit behind as well. And then St. Louis Avenue from basically the interstate exit all the way to Jefferson. We probably will not have enough funding to get that one done, but may be able to get into design. And then 20th Street on the east side of the NGA from Cass Avenue up to St. Louis Avenue is in desperate need of resurfacing. The construction trucks tore that road up and it was bad to begin with. There is a fire station located on that route that would like to see that roadway improved, if not just the surface, you know, the full street rebuild, but that's looking unlikely as far as funding goes, but it will remain on the list and we will seek other sources of funding as best possible. If you look at the graphic up here on the screen, just one quick comment, the little jog to the west, I think that's at Market Street from 20th over to 20th, on Market Street from 20th over to 22nd. That is not a part of this project. We took that out because the NGA will not be using that roadway as an entrance into the plant. So that was something that we deleted from this project, just to be clear.
Thank you. All right, any further questions from the commissioners on this resolution? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 24 LCRA 10901.
So move, request previous roll.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second and a request for a previous roll. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Mr. Reichers.
Thank you.
Zach, are we going back in order now?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Then we'll take up resolution 24 LCRA 10898 relating to a loan to St. Louis Brewery Apartments. Olivia, are you walking us through this?
Yes, I am. This resolution is to authorize the subordination and modification of a $1.5 million Urban Development Action Grant loan, otherwise called a UDAG loan, issued through LCRA to St. Louis Brewery Apartments, the developer. And this is to enable the developer to refinance its obligations and secure additional funds. Some background, this loan and project has about a 40-year history. This loan was initially issued by LCRA in 1985 through funds received from CDA. It was a UDAG loan in the amount of $1,633,255 to St. Louis Place Apartment Associates, and which assigned its rights to the current developer in 2005. And the loan was issued in connection with a redevelopment agreement, which was initially entered into between LCRA and City Equity Corp in 1984. Was reassigned multiple times, eventually to St. Louis Place Apartment Associates in 1985, and then again to a current developer in 2005. So over time and in connection with that 2005 assignment and reorganization of the loan balance has been reduced to its existing principal balance of $1.5 million. That loan has a 0% interest rate, and LCRA currently has, I believe, an 8th priority interest. And this is related to a project. So the loan partially funds a project which involves the brewery apartments, and that includes the renovation of over 100 apartment units spread out over multiple historic buildings. So as mentioned, at this time, the developer is refinancing its obligations and has secured some additional funding, including a new HUD Green and Resilient Retrofit Program loan, a GRP loan. And in order to close on that refinancing and new funding, developers requested that the LCRA loan be assumed and modified and subordinated, and that the 1984 redevelopment agreement, we acknowledge that that is been terminated. Upon consultation with staff, we agree that it would be appropriate to acknowledge the termination of the 1984 redevelopment agreement. And this refinancing would allow for the developer to secure the funds necessary to bring this project to a completion. I believe we were going to have someone from the developer on the line, though I do not currently see them.
Olivia, could you check the
Oh, I
participants
see
and make
Ashley.
sure?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
Ashley Fell is here from the developer if there are any specific questions.
if we have any specific questions for the developer, otherwise I will answer what questions I can and also ask Charlie to help me answer any other specific questions relating to the loan arrangements.
Very good. Well, I'm sorry, did we get the individual moved over from the guest?
He's already over.
Yes, it looks like she's already over.
Okay, she's already on. All right, do you have anything to add as a context to what Olivia presented?
I think this is Ashley. I think she covered most of it. Timing wise, I just wanted to give a little update. We are looking on closing on the financing and starting construction in mid-January. And then it will have like a 18-month construction period. So it'll be done in the summer of 2026. And as she said, it includes the substantial renovation of 139 historic units across the property. And I'm happy to answer anything else.
All right, do we have any questions for Ashley? Commissioner Spencer.
Would you mind just giving us a little background on how this redevelopment is happening? Is this a LIHTC award too, or another historic preservation tax credit, or both?
Sure, it's a lot of things. It is both, and it's also part of the Near Northside Choice Neighborhood Initiatives grant. So it's the only off-site phase. The rest are all occurring at Preservation Square, but we're preserving affordable housing through an existing project-based Section 8 contract that's currently part of Preservation Square. So 83 of those units will be transferred over to the brewery when it's completed. So there will be market rate tax credit and project-based units at the property. It has received tax credits, federal low-income housing tax credits, and then federal and state historic tax credits. And then we are assuming a couple other existing MHDC loans. And then we've also required new financing, as Olivia referenced, including the GRP, a CDA home loan. There's a lot. I just had it pulled up.
Well, the one that stood out to me was the Green and Resilient Retrofit Program, because I didn't think
Yeah.
those awards yet. I thought that was coming next year. Is that a program that you've already been awarded funding from?
It is. So there's 3 different cohorts. The brewery is part of the Elements cohort. And so that was like the smaller program for deals that were pretty much ready to close. So it was for $750,000. We were awarded, I think it's been about a year. It was at the end of last year that we received the award. And yeah, and they basically are having like rolling rounds of funding that you can apply for. So I'm not sure if that's ongoing, but we applied in the first available round.
That makes a lot more sense. I think we were doing a much larger allocation through the Community Builders Network and some other not-for-profit. That makes a lot more sense to me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't driven by or seen this project, it is a beautiful reuse of an existing building. It is, I think it was really, ahead of its time back in 1985.
Outstanding. Any other, I recognize Commissioner Koenig.
Just because I'm kind of new to this, can somebody explain to me, how this award it was given, I know, at a time when a lot of these funds were giving out. And then has it been inactive, the activity at this property site all this time? Or have there been other reasons for delays or lack of progress? Or is there something that I'm just not understanding as to, the 40 years?
I can, I think, answer that. So in 2005, the project was also re-syndicated and refinanced, and a more moderate rehab took place. So yeah, the original rehab was in 1985-86, when it was converted to housing. And then it was rehabbed again in 2005, 2006. And now we're looking at a substantial rehab after all this time, because it's in need of, system-wide repairs. A lot of the units are going to be gutted, so it'll be a much more substantial rehab this time around.
Oh, okay. So in all this time, the units have been in use and
Yes.
occupied, and okay. So all
Yeah.
right, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like lying vacant all this time or something.
No,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
will say that we did vacate the main historic buildings that you see in that bottom picture at the end of last year due to winterization issues. So those have been vacant for about a year, and then we have not been leasing since we've had this, renovation in place. And so there are currently just about 33 families there that will take place in the rolling renovation once construction, or rolling rehab and relocation process once we close.
Okay. Thank you. That was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any further questions for Ashley? Seeing none, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 24 LCRA 10898.
So moved, request for previous rule.
I second.
Been properly moved and seconded. The request for previous roll. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, now we're going to move down to Resolution 24 LCRA 10899. Peter Phillips is going to walk us through a resolution authorizing an agreement for Professional Environmental Engineers, Inc. Peter.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. So, as stated, 24 LCRA 10899 is a resolution authorizing entering into an agreement with Professional Environmental Engineers, Inc., or PE, for environmental engineering consulting services at 4690 and 4700 Goodfellow. You have a map in front of you here. There it is faintly. The two identified properties that we're talking about here are outlined in red. And this is also, for context, just south of 4800 Goodfellow, which is the previous St. Louis Army ammunition plant from the federal government, which we also currently own and are seeking redevelopment for. So back, I want to say, I'm checking my notes here, in July, LCRA actually acquired these two parcels that are highlighted. And what we're with the LCRA Proactive Assemblage and Redevelopment Fund, with our plans to get these properties in a variety of different activities for pre-development to get them better advertised for redevelopment. So, and the thought would be that given its adjacency to the vacant land to the north of 4800, we can get these ready to go for redevelopment and have a much larger site. This is a little bit more than 10 acres additional that could be potentially added to the north for a much larger redevelopment site. So the plan for this is previous use, and there's some samples that were done a couple of years ago. And we're going to be doing some remediation, and then the plan would be for demolition of 4700 Goodfellow to clear the site and make way for redevelopment. The purpose of this contract is for the environmental planning, the cleanup planning, and the oversight of those activities. So the funding source we're planning on using are one, the LCRA, the ARPA funds, the assemblage and pre-development, but also trying to combine it with some EPA revolving loan funds dollars that we also have access to make both dollars go further. And so there's a process that we need to go through in order to utilize those funds, the EPA funds. And it's also just good practice anyway, by the way, which is enrolling into the voluntary cleanup program at the Missouri Department of Natural Resources for their oversight of the remediation activities that are going to be happening. And so this environmental engineering firm has been recommended to provide those services to draft up and submit the remediation action plan, the cleanup plan, which is going to entail removing the asbestos that's all over the building, the interior and exterior, as well as there's lead dust throughout the building that would also need to be handled and cleaned up appropriately and disposed of before the demolition can happen, so that all of that is removed, so that when demolition happens, none of those contaminants go airborne. So the remedial action plan will be drafted and submitted to the state by this firm. Once approved, this engineering firm will also be the ones who are doing the confirmation that the abatement is done correctly. Once the abatement and demolition contractors have been contracted, that will be separate. They are not this firm is not doing the abatement and demolition, to be clear. This third-party firm will be overseeing that work to make sure it's being done correctly by the remedial action plan that's approved by the state. They will do all the confirmation samples and the closure report to submit to the state, and then help us get that final closure letter that says everything was done correctly, which will allow us to then at that point demolish the site. So that's the full context. That's what this contract is for: the cleanup planning, the closure reporting, and the oversight of the daily activity during the remediation and demolition activities. So you'll see here we are requesting up to $150,000 for this agreement with PE, and that's broken down into two different categories. We have up to $25,000 for that planning and reporting component. That's kind of the fixed costs related to them generating these reports, interfacing with MDNR, and then generating the closure report at the end of it. That's just their admin fees for the reporting and design of the remediation. The rest of it, we're seeking an allocation of up to 125 for the daily oversight of the activities. Now that is very much an up to, because it's based on estimated daily rates for those activities, and that how many days is going to be completely dependent upon the number of days it takes for the remediation and the demolition to happen. So that's an estimate of 100 days. 100 business days for that work to happen. Could be less. I hope it's less. But we are building in for their hourly rates and their unit rates for sampling and someone out on site for up to 100 days, which is again just an estimate based on the scope and the size of the project. If it comes in less than that, again, they will only be paid based on the number of samples that they take and the number of days that they had people out there. This is all based on unit rates that they proposed in the proposals. So final context would be this was submitted to the environmental engineering shortlist we submitted it to all firms. We got 2 responses. Those 2 were evaluated, and based on the evaluations, we are recommending going with PE. Have extensive site knowledge. They were the ones who also did the phase 1 and phase 2 assessments on this property a couple of years ago. They have a good understanding of it. They're a very qualified firm as per being on our pre-qualified shortlist. And their prices were competitive with the other respondents after being fully evaluated and compared accurately. So at this time, I know I threw a lot at you, so I will open it up to any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Peter? Mr. Spencer?
I thought that was a great review and presentation of what needs to happen and how we're going to pay for it. So I appreciate you going into that detail. I know it seemed like a lot, but it was really helpful to me. When I'm looking at the map, I know we've seen this several times, and Rob usually is leading some of the conversations around our acquisitions, but I did want to ask about that 4630 Goodfellow. Was that part of the acquisition or in addition to what we're talking about today, just so I can get a sense of what might be coming next?
No, that one is not in the acquisition plan.
The House of Peace wasn't acquired either.
No, it has not been acquired.
Okay.
Correct.
Very good. Yeah, and I've used PEE before, and they're a reputable company, and I'm glad to see that they're on this project for us. Thank you.
Any further questions for Peter? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 24 LCRA 10899.
So move. Request for previous roll.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to abstain, so we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Koenig,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Okay.
We have a motion passes with 3 voting yes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. And now we'll take up Resolution 24 LCRA 10900. Mike Ziegler going to walk us through the MSD Combined Sewer Overflow Volume Reduction Green Infrastructure Program.
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Mike Ziegler. I work within SLDC as a Green City Coalition Director. I apologize for not having a slide, but hopefully this is simple enough that I can talk you through. We are seeking authorization to use funds that are currently held within LCRA. These are MSG funds, and we're trying to use this for the purpose of constructing a large-scale rain garden on LRA property through a program called Project Clear, which is an MSD program that reimburses landowners for removing impervious surface and installing green infrastructure. In this instance, LRA is the landowner. And so they have already they've been awarded a grant of $415,000 or up to $415,000 for this construction installation expenses. Once the program or project is fully constructed, that full amount will be reimbursed back to LCRA. And it will go back into the same source of funds. So one question might be, why is this coming for LCRA and not LRA? So LCRA is holding the funds through a program called the Urban Greening Program, but here in the resolution, it's referenced as the Combined Sewer Overflow Volume Reduction Green Infrastructure Agreement that LCRA entered into an agreement with MSD back in 2017. This is otherwise known as the Urban Greening Program, which is used for sustainable demolitions, and that has a $1 million advance in it. MSD has already signed a written agreement saying that we can use these UGP funds for the initial investment into this rain garden, and then upon completion, the fund will be reimbursed back into that same pot of funds. So essentially, it's a circle where using MSD funds to pay for the installation of this rain garden to be reimbursed by MSD. But it's coming before LCRA to get approval to expend these funds to pay contractors for this work. The SLDC or the Green City Coalition has already been approved to go out to bid for these contractors. So we're hoping through the timeline on this is to put out an RFP for construction before the end of this year. And hopefully have construction lined up this spring for this rain garden. Some additional context, this rain garden is part of a larger project called Peace Park, which is up in the College Hill neighborhood. And that's an effort of community residents and community partners to create a neighborhood park in the College Hill neighborhood. And so this is part of phase 2 development of that park. GCC is currently the project lead for that. So that's why we're working to kind of coordinate the construction of this rain garden. I am not sure if I missed anything, but I'm open to any questions that you might have about this.
Thank you, Mike. What you say this is going to create a large scale rain garden? What are the dimensions we're talking about? How large is this?
It'll be about it'll be about 13,000 square feet. And will be a little bit more than just a normal garden. It will have a substrate. There have already been landscape designs drawn up and civil engineering designs drawn up. So there will be a substrate layer below the rain garden and overflow over the sidewalk, which has already been approved by the Board of Public Service. And MSD has approved all the engineering documents for it. So pretty large. It runs the length of a block along Bissell Street between 20th and Stratman. And this is all across from the big water tower on Grand, the North Grand Water Tower.
Oh, outstanding. All right, any questions from the commissioners for Mike? Commissioner Koenig.
Thank you for that. That sounds like an impressive rain garden. Did I understand you correctly that essentially you're asking that we advance the funds and then in order to get started, and then in the end, LCRA will receive some kind of reimbursement? Did I understand that right?
I probably didn't explain it super or incredibly clearly. So LCRA is already in possession of funds from MSD through an agreement that was authorized back in 2017. That full agreement was $13.5 million of the MSD funds. Of that, we're holding a $1 million advance that we can use for various purposes as long as it's authorized by MSD. So we have permission from SD to use that advance of funds to pay for the construction of this rain garden. And reimbursement only comes after the rain garden is fully completed. It's not partial reimbursement. So once it's fully completed and inspected, which would hopefully be this summer, those funds would be returned back into that $1 million chunk.
Okay, thank you very much. That helped clarify.
Any further questions? And Mike, is this the first time you've presented to our board? I can't recall.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I started this year, so.
All right, well, thank you and welcome. And thank you for your detailed presentation. With that, entertain a motion to approve Resolution 24 LCRA 10900.
I so move.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Koenig,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Thank you. All right, and now I believe we'll take up the financials with Charlie Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you all hear me?
We can.
The report before you is the end of the fiscal year report, which is June 30th, 24. The audit is wrapping up and will be presented to SLDC in a couple of days, but this is part of that audit. And I'll just run over the numbers real fast with you if I could. LCRA ended the year with a about $10 million in cash. Almost half of that is tied up in the garage at City Block 118, some being used for repair, some being used to secure debt, and whatever is required by the lender. And some is discretionary for future repairs. There's also some funds in that amount that are related to the ARPA program. I think about 1.5 million, and the rest is pretty much LCRA corporate to be used where you approve disbursements around the city. We have accounts receivable interagency of 4.2 million. Those are monies that LCRA provides its sister agencies under the SLDC roof. It is almost offset with the interagency payable, which is a liability, the fifth line item under liability. So there's not a, when you net them out, it's a very small number. We have accounts receivable other. Those are receivables. That is primarily receivable from the soccer stadium where we fronted expenses for them and need to request it back. At the time, there was 451,000 of receivables from our parking operations. That money has all been collected. It's just a timing issue at June 30th. We have a due from funding sources, 1,898,000, and then an allowance of 1,384,000. The allowance was recommended by the auditors, and that relates to the brownfield project in the River City Business Park, and real quickly, the state approved almost $12 million in brownfield, but the last half of that was tied to job creation, and that was not, that goal was not met. Therefore, the state stopped, cut off our funding at roughly 10.5 million, maybe 10.6. And we were always looking to pursue that when we did create the needed jobs, but we still haven't got to that milestone. The auditors decided to put an allowance against that receivable. So what's remaining there is from a different entity. It's and that is a good solid receivable that will be paid. The notes receivable of 11.8 million involves about 5 or 6 projects, and we have allowances against that are not new. They've been on the books for a while, resulting in a net note receivable of 5.621, prepaid expenses of 38,000, and then we have capital investments of 35.2 million, offset with depreciation of 20.4, netting 14 million, and assets totaling 35,969. Under liabilities, there's, if anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me, or at the end, you're welcome to present questions. Accounts payable of 319,000. Those are just vendors that we owed at the time. I think they've all probably been paid by now. We have interest payable of 24. We have a notes payable of 12,783,000. Again, there's the note we have with MDFB related to 600 Washington, the note with Stiefel on the garage. We have a note to MHDC on the Biddle House. It's been on the books for a while and is being amortized, and probably will be gone in 3 years. And then there's note related to City Block 177, which is the doorstep to the convention center. We purchased some surface lots related to the convention center, and that's still, we're seeking developers on that. We talked about the interagency accounts payable. Escrowed funds held are monies that are in reserve for projects that are pending. We have like the MSD demolition program that was mentioned by Mike. Sales tax use fund that is just reserved for the pending the board's decisions on use. We have a smart city grant of 500,000 for smart city related activities, and KillArk like 1.4 million for KillArk as we incur expenses going forward. Those are ARPA funds. Liabilities and fund balance total 35.9, same as the assets. Then on page 2 are the breakdown of the revenue and expense. Under revenue, the top 3 items are different parking locations. The first one is the baseball lot that we have and have owned for about 30 years. It generated 268,000 during the, and these are net numbers, during the that fiscal year. We had budgeted 340. We had made 274 the prior year. I'm just going across the columns here. And that one, we feel the pinch when the Cardinals don't draw, you know, 35,000 a game. So it is what it is. City Block 124 is right outside the front door of the convention center. It met its budgetary goal, 300,000 budgeted, over 301 generated, again on a net basis. And I think this garage is picked up a little bit when the demolition of the old City Block 166 garage. It was condemned, stood vacant for quite some time, and was eventually knocked down, which picked the parking on this picked up then. Then the City Block 118 garage, 2.558 generated, 2,340,000 budgeted, but we made 2.6 the prior year. This is the garage that we have to work around the construction on, and I'm really pleased that we got as high as we did, although a lot of that is, you know, the single user of Steeple, and they continue to pay whether there's construction, bad weather, or COVID, or whatever. Going down to other items, the lease rental, the 109 is actually, it could be considered parking. It's the lease of City Block 177 to a parking operator, and it's just an interim use until we find a developer for City Block 177. That's net of security costs, which we started incurring, I think, in this fiscal year. So it would generally be gross, like it was the prior year. 177 would be our normal fee on that. We have bond and development fees. The largest part of that is the payment from the casino under a redevelopment agreement that they would pay LCRA if a casino was opened up at the River City location, which we all know it has been, and they continue to pay us that $1 million a year, which we include in the transfer to SLDC down at the bottom, and I'll get into that. We had also other fees that relate to the sales tax exemption when you approve those projects, and Chapter 99 fees, et cetera, like that. Interest income, 526. Interest rates were high this year, so we did pretty well there. The program non-governmental would be things like the MSD funds that were mentioned prior, where we use funds from MSD to demolish properties. The intergovernmental of 16090 is a combination of the two main contributors to that would be the Missouri Development Finance Board when they award tax credits for development tax credits. They flow through LCRA. They totaled roughly 13 and some change of that 16. The other was primarily ARPA funds that flowed through LCRA for the Killark purchase. And there were some other minor things in there. Continuing down, interest expense 593. Again, we got interest on our loans of the Stiefel loan on the garage and the Stiefel loan on City Block 177. Those total over 300 of that 593. The 600 Washington with the state is in there, and some other minor things. We have a consulting expense, and I think all these contracts have come through this board. A lot of it is legal expense that we've incurred on the railway exchange and the Northside property endeavor. Things like the SCI is also in there that is work being done at the River City project, that it's cleanup work that is tied to a promise we made to a number of parties that we would survey the contents of the soil, and that's wrap up work there. We had facility and property expense, primarily garage related expense, 1,123,000. Depreciation expense of 356. Now the next item relates to what I discussed before when they took the allowance. This is the end result. It's a cost that they book as bad debt. The 40,000 for surveys and titles, the construction and property improvement and program pretty much tie into the intergovernmental and the non-governmental numbers combined. Net income of 1,550,000. We transferred 2.6 to SLDC, and again 1 million of that was that million from the development agreement with the casino. The other is LCRA money that was generated. A lot of the staff, and we go over this when we do the budget resolution, Mr. Chairman. LCRA takes up very much of the staff time here, as far as and you can tell by the agendas, and they're complicated agendas and big projects, but that 2.6 goes to SLDC. SLDC's overall admin budget is 16 million, so we're 15% of SLDC or something like that.
We're very needy.
Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate you all staying awake during that, and hope to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Charlie. Any questions from the commissioners for Charlie Hahn? Commissioner Spencer.
Just two quick ones. Thanks for running down that. I love hearing the context behind the numbers, and it is complicated. And I hope there's some institutional knowledge that can be passed along to many other people that are in at SLDC. There's a lot to know here. But one of the things that stands out to me are the notes payable. Do we have floating interest rates or any terms that are coming up that you're anticipating some significant increased costs on the interest carry for those notes? And then the last question is, when you look at your fund balance and the actual real estate valuations, are those based on the cost basis, or do you feel like that fund is significantly larger based on the appreciation of those assets?
Okay, the first question, we just did a refinance with Stifel. We were paying 4%. This refinance took us over 6. I think it's 6.25, maybe 6.5. I hope it has no prepayment penalty. I hope if interest rates trend down that we will push that interest rate down on a refinance. That is roughly half the debt. The other half, a lot of it is MDFB, which they're pretty close to that 6% rate, Mr. Commissioner. And regarding the fund balance, we are on a cost basis when we acquire property. If we do not think the property is going to generate what we paid for it, we do set up allowances. As we discussed before, when the auditors come in, they discuss them and then they make their own decision. And that's what happened when I went over that first item. It doesn't mean we remove the receivable from the books. The receivable is still there, and until there's final closure on it. But we do book things at cost, and if we do not think they will generate the purchase price, it's our job to take an allowance on those.
I was thinking actually that they may have appreciated over time, and I think my point is maybe that maybe the property is a little bit more valued a little bit higher, but that was just something I was thinking about.
Yeah, that is very possible. I think I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but of course the slab site we have valued at like $100,000. You know, if you took that 16 acres and it probably would generate, you know, $1 a foot at least.
Yeah, I think that's something for our board to really understand, is that what we're looking at may not be the market value as of today. It's just
that's correct, very much so. We found that out in the PIE meeting the other day, which I think we can discuss at the PIE meeting today. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, and I think that we're taking a conservative approach with the valuation of our taxpayer dollars. So I think it's appropriate.
Yep.
We don't have any action to take on the financial reports. So let's go ahead and take up an open agenda. See if there's anything we have an open agenda.
No, we do not. We just
There's an open agenda. We do have the executive session. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss items referenced by Missouri Revised Statute 610.021, parents 1, parents 2, and parents 18. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Move a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Koenig,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer. Commissioner Spencer,
Sorry, aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes without voting yes.
Very good. And at this time, we'll go into executive session and we'll return for the PIEA meeting. Thank you. Okay, very good. Then at this time, is there any, I don't believe we have anything in open session. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is scheduled for January 28th. I'm going to suggest that's 2025, even though it says otherwise on the agenda.
RA 2025.
That is okay. I'm gonna write a few misdated checks in the next month or two. We wish you all a good holiday, and with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the LCRA session. We do have the PIEA to follow.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We are adjourned.